Welcome back. This is Jeff Byers and this is Andy255, and this is part 3 of our series on creating a sparkler. And we're doing a basically spark simulation. With this, let's go ahead and take a look at what we have so far from where we left off. Okay, that looks pretty good. Colors are totally off. We'll fix that, and our lifespan is too long. Okay, but what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and add collisions now to everything so we can get an idea how everything's going to be working. So what you want to do is you want to click on the particle, okay, and then hold down the shift key and click on the ground. So particle and the floor, and go to end particles, go to make collide at the bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to check out. We now have a Geoconnector connected to the sparks, and it's working out great. You can see that the particles hit the ground and don't do anything. Okay. Alright, so we're going to do that with the countertop, or excuse me, the top of the table. So I'm going to click on the particle and shift select. Let's go ahead and go back. Rewind that. Hit the particle and then shift select the tabletop. And let's do another end particles, make collide. Let's do the same thing with particles again. This time we're going to click on the base. And we're going to make collide. So end particles, make collide. So we've got three things we're colliding with: the floor, the tabletop, and the legs, just in case they bounce around and they do hit something, they won't go through. Although it's very hard to tell anyway, but you can see that we got particles hitting the tabletop and then the ground. Okay, great. Awesome. Looks pretty good. Alright, so the only thing that I'm not too happy about it's just how they look. We need to have particles. Let's go ahead and play that one more time, just kind of take a look at it. And we could probably leave it as is, but we want particles bouncing a little bit more. So I'm going to click on the particles and look at the Geoconnector. We've got 1, 2, and 3. So Geoconnector 1 has to do with the ground. Geoconnector 2 is the tabletop, and Geoconnector 3 is the base of the table. And you could easily go in there and rename them. If you had more than 3, I already know which ones are connected to what, but if you had more than 3, it would be hard to kind of keep them separated. You wouldn't know which one is what, so you could rename those right here if you wanted to. Okay. So what is the Geoconnector again? Well, again, when we add collision, that's what gets connected between the particle and the object that it's colliding with. And the resilience is the bounciness. Now, the reason why you don't see it bouncing, usually it bounces all over the place, is that the resilience that's been set, it remembers what I set it the last time. So when you first get it in, we get something that looks like this. And so it's 1 and 0. So when we look at this, you can see that they're going to bounce all over the place, and that's what it normally would look like when you are creating it. Okay, so that's awful. So we don't want that. So we're going to go in here and change the resilience to something like maybe 0.1, and friction we want to add maybe 0.15 or something like that, just to start off with. And take a look at what we have, and that looks like it bounces and slides away. I like that much better because sparks usually, if I remember it right, they're filaments that are burned out and they just kind of roll around. They're still very very hot. They get cool by the time they hit the ground, and some of them do go away pretty quickly. So I'm liking what I'm seeing. Maybe more friction would help a little bit. So let's go ahead and add friction of 0.25 just to pull them back a little bit so they're not rolling so quickly. There we go. Much better. We want them to slide a little bit, but not too far. There we go. That's much better. So we got a bit of a bounce. That looks great. I like that. So we'll go ahead and stop that, and then we're going to go to the tabletop. So let's go to the tabletop, and that's Geoconnector 2. And we want the same kind of reaction. We want like 0.1 and a 0.25 on that as well. So we kind of want them to react closely, about the same. Okay, so let me go to the ground again, make sure we got that set 0.1 and 0.25, and then we go to the tabletop, 0.1, 0.25, that's great. And then same exact thing for the legs. So with the geoconnector, so 0.1 and 0.25 for that. There we go. Just in case they bounce around a little bit in the scene. Now, I'm pretty happy with that, actually. Now, you could go in here and break those up a little bit. Now, I know sparklers, they tend, sometimes, some of them, I'm not saying all of them, will burn extremely hot, and then they fly off. There's kind of an explosion going on there. So they burn off, and then they spark again. Now, what we can do is, we can get kind of the same thing. Now, it's a little different than water. You may see these hit the ground and break into two. Maybe that happens, maybe three, but not like water, okay? So what we're going to do is maybe just break it into two when it hits the ground or hits the table, okay? So do you guys remember what to do to have, when these guys collide, that they break up into smaller pieces? Okay, so let's remind you. So we're going to go to the particle, okay? And what we're going to do with the particle is we're going to go in here and go to End Particles and go to Particle Collision Event Editor. Okay. Alright, with that, then we're going to go in here, and the event will be to emit or split. So we're going to go ahead and emit. Now, split, that's an interesting thing. But if we hit emit, a number of particles, random number of particles, yeah, why not? So we can do a random number of between 1 and 2. Okay, so number of particles would be 2, so it'd be between 1 and 2, or 0, well, it'd be 1 and 2. And if you had a larger number, then it would pick which so that would help randomize it, make it look a little better. And spread is 0.5, so 50%. Do we want it to spread like that? That's pretty high. So let's go maybe 15 degrees, maybe. Okay. Inherent velocity, we'll keep it that where it is right now. Original particle dies, yes. You always want that. Create event. Okay, cool. So I created the other particle event. So let's go ahead and go back. And you can see that we've got some particles going crazy. Again, that happens with the new particle generation and the geoconnector and gravity and all that stuff. So we want to add the gravity field to the new particle system so they're not flying all over the place. And then we've got to add another collision. So we've got a lot of work that we created for ourselves, unfortunately, but this will, make it look more realistic. So first thing we're going to do is add the gravity. How do we do that? Go to Windows, and we're going to go into Relationship Editors, Dynamic Relationships, and then in here we'll just add the gravity. That's how easy it is. Okay, so now the gravity is attracted, it's going to pull those down. And then we have the bounciness, craziness thing going on here. Well, the particles really aren't colliding with anything, so we got to make that distinction. So click on particle, and then we're going to go ahead and shift click on the floor. And we're just going to go to End Particles and make collide again. Okay, so I'm going to do this for all the objects. Click on that, click on the tabletop, and I'm going to hit G because it remembers what I did before. Result particle shape 2. Okay, so looks like Geoconnector on the tabletop for particle 2 is in there. Okay, so I got particle Geoconnector 1 and 2. We got one more to do. Okay, so I'm going to shift select the base, the legs, and do the same thing and make collide. There we go. So now we got 3. So what we're going to do here is do the same kind of thing. So click on the particles and we're going to go through all of them. So this one here will be 0.1 like we had before. This one will be 0.25 if I remember that right, and 0.1 on that one, 0.25. We want them to all act the same way. And then Geoconnector 3, we want that to be 0.1 and 0.25. There we go. I think that looks about right. Okay. Alright, so the problem with that is particle life expectancy is way too high, so let's go ahead and go back. Particle shape, we don't want them to live forever. Random range, lifespan of, let's go make these a lot shorter, 0.5. So that'd be about 12 frames. And then points, we want to be streak, render type, and the tail size. Let's try 0.5. We don't want to have a long tail size. We want those to look a little different. So there we go. Okay. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I like that. You can see them bouncing around a little bit. How long are they bouncing? Let's take a look. And the lifespan too high. I don't think so. I think that's pretty good. Right. So what's the color going to be like? You know, the sparkler, we need to check particle 2. Let's go ahead and add the color to the particle 2. And like we did before. So go make sure you click on particle 2, click on color, add per particle attribute, click add attribute. Okay, we need to go in here and create a ramp, and then right click over the ramp and then go into edit ramp. And now it's your decision on what color you'd like to use, and feel free to experiment with the colors. I'm not going to grade you on what colors that you use. If you'd like to use bright pink, use bright pink, because I've seen sparklers, they have all kinds of color. Now what I would highly suggest that you do though is that when, the only thing I'm going to ask you to do is when it's burning the brightest, it's going to be white. Okay, so you want to start off with white first. Now the sparks, when the sparks finally cool off and hit something, that's when they break apart, so the color will change a little bit. Okay, so usually the hottest is white, and then you go down into blue, I believe, and then you get into the yellows and then the reds, and then it finally cools off. So but anyway, you can have different colors though. I believe that the sparklers uses phosphorus, so they can put colors in those, in the phosphorus. So while it's burning, it's going to burn white hot at the center. Okay, so let's click on the first particle, and let's right click over here and go into the edit ramp. Okay, so we want to start off with white, so let's go ahead and start off with white. Okay, that's important. And then we're going to end up down here somewhere in whatever color you decide, right? Whatever color you decide you want to have it, whether it be purple or whatever. That's up to you, and I'll let you guys have fun with that. I'm not going to grade you on what the ending color is going to be. Okay, I'm going to stick with the old orange, kind of reddish we go through orange first. Let's go through orange. And then we want to go through red. And then we want to, and at the very back end, it's going to die, which means it's going to get very, very dark. Okay. And then finally black, which means that it's basically burned out. It's going to be at the very end here. That will be black. Here we go. You have to be careful with that. Might want to just something like that. Let's see what that looks like. Because unfortunately, it shouldn't be black. We should probably, those probably should not turn black. I'm thinking. Let's go in there. That shouldn't be turning black, but the other ones could, I think. Let's go ahead and do that. There we go. Got red. Okay, they're cooling off. Let's get this a little bit closer, like that. So it's more orange. There we go. Like that. That looks pretty good. Now, when we do random range on the lifespan of these, let's go ahead and turn that off. Let's rewind it. I don't want to push that all the way down like that. Okay. So the lifespan. Look at that. That might be too random. So I'm going to go in here. All right, lifespan random. Oh yeah. Let's bring that to 0.5. Pull that back a little bit. What's happening is we're getting kind of it's a little too random, which makes it. In fact, let's turn that off a minute because I want it to be pretty stable. Okay, so no random range. There we go. Okay. And I don't like the dark in there. So what I'm going to do is go back. And these are changes that you're going to make too as well. Let's get rid of that. I don't like that. Let's keep them orange. Yeah, there you go. That way they're still burning hot. There we go. That's better, I think. And I don't like the way it looks either. So let's go back into here. Scroll up. And line width is now too large. So there we go. That's much better. There, that looks better. Okay. And then let's work on the secondary pieces that are coming out. And those can be like darker. Go from orange to dark. So let's go ahead and stop that. Particle 2, scroll down. And let's go ahead and get that ramp edited to being let's see here, we want the same orange probably when they're hitting, and then we want them to go to black, so from orange to black would be a good idea. And still have to be kind of careful. How about gray? That'd be better because black is sticking out too heavy. Let's go to darker one. We could even go to a darker gray. See how that looks. So they kind of turn invisible. Let's try black just to see what it looks like. They're not even living long enough to see the black, but that works pretty good. Okay, let's get a little closer. Some of the particles. Okay. Bring Bring that up a little bit more, see if we can see that a little bit better. See if there's any living long enough. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'll just bring that back again. Something like that. Right. That looks pretty good. Alright, great. So if you're happy with what you have, I think that looks pretty good. Let's see here. Let's go in here. That looks pretty good. I like that. Okay. Alright. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take the sparkler stick and we are going to move the pivot point down. So go ahead and rewind that. Let's go ahead and save your scene though. Probably a good idea. Save your scene to scene 6. There we go. Now, that's good. Alright, so what we're going to do now is move the pivot point down. So I'm going to hold the D key. Let's hit the W key and then hold the D key down. And I suppose I could get a little closer. We could see what's going on here. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and bring that down. So hold the D key down. And as you're holding the D key down, just move that pivot point down to the bottom where you would be holding the stick. Like that. And you know what? Whatever the pivot point is of where your hand would be, that'd be fine. So where would that be? Something around there maybe? Like that? Okay. So that's how you gotta rotate it around. Well, obviously if you rotate that, the emitter won't stay with it. Okay. So what we're gonna have to do is we're going to have to go in there and parent the emitter to the sparkler 1, which is that guy. So the emitter is the key. So I'm going to middle mouse button, okay, drag it into sparkler 1. Okay, so again I'm going to click on the emitter, hold down the middle mouse button, just hold it down, and then move it into sparkler 1. Now those of you that are using Maya and Mac, you're gonna have to set up you're gonna have to have a 3-button mouse. But there's another way. You know, you can go ahead and parent it. That's basically what I'm doing when I'm doing this. You could click on the emitter, hold down the control key, and click on the sparkler and hit the P key. And that does the same thing. The P as in Paul, that parents. Okay, let's go back, and I like just dragging stuff in there like that. There you go. Right, so there it is. So now what you want to do for the animation, we're going to go ahead and start at frame 1, and let's go ahead and wave that around a little bit. So let's hit the S key for set keyframe, and then we're going to move, probably just fling it around a little bit. So 1 second, 1001. So we're going to go 24 frames. Okay. And we're going to go ahead, set a key there, and then we're going to go to 48 frames. And just move it down like that. Set a key frame, and so we got 48. Let's go 10 frames, 68. Let's kind of bring that around, and then back up again like that, and set a key, and we'll go another 10 frames, maybe a little bit longer. Let's go up to 100 on this one, and fling that over like that, and maybe kind of go up like that. And in between, instead of it being exactly perfect, let's go in between those two frames and pull it down like that. So we get kind of an arc there. There we go. And went from 100 to 110. We'll bring that back up again and pose it this way now, like that. And that's 110 and 100, let's say 25. We'll go back down, that. Just kind of moving that around. Alright, so go ahead and play with that a little bit. And then we'll just bring it back up again to position. Let's go ahead and go to Control A and just kind of get all that squared away. Click on all these and just hit 0. Here we go. And hit the S key. That will be our final frame. So let's just do a quick run. There we go. Alright, something like that. You can animate it any way you like. I just want to see some movement. And let's bring that camera out a little bit more. Okay. Something like that. And we don't need this many frames. So we have like 600 frames. So I think 300 would be fine. So we were able to do it a lot fewer frames than I thought. So we'll go ahead and type in 300. Play the final animation. To make this a little more interesting, what we could do is you could animate that burning down, but you know, we don't have the time for that. But as far as like the animation, that would take a lot of frames to do that, but that'd be something you could do. You could animate that emitter down the stick as it's burning out, which would be cool. But what I want to do is, let's just act like it's burning all the way out. And so what we want to do is we want to show the sparkler actually dying off. Okay, so how do you do that? Let's go ahead and play the animation. Everything's looking pretty good. Alright, sounds good, and that looks pretty good. So we're going to start having it die off about 240. So at frame 240, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the emitter. And so you can see I don't have any real keyframes on this. So I'm going to go in here. At frame 1, I'm going to set that keyframe. Now, look at the rate I have. Okay, so instead of setting a keyframe for everything, I'm just going to set a keyframe for the rate. So I'm going to click on emitter and right click over this and go to key selected. Okay, that's going to keyframe at 500 particles per second. So we're going to go to 240, and at 240 I'm going to go ahead and set that at 500. So we're going to have a nice, you know, and we could change this if we really wanted to mess with this a little bit. We could go in here and make those like subtle changes, like how many particles are being emitted, and then at frame 60 I could have that drop, you know, to something like, what was that, 600 or 500? We could go to 450. I know that's very subtle and it would be almost impossible to notice that, but these subtle little changes. And let's go back maybe 120. Let's go back up to 500 and right click over it, key select. Actually, let's make that more. Let's make that 550. Again, these are subtle changes, but it adds to the animation. And something around 180. And the rate, let's say the rate goes back down to something like 425. Okay, there we go. And you can see now that rate is now animated, and it just makes it a little more interesting, even though it's almost impossible to tell what I'm doing here. But at the very end you will see it. So at frame 240, okay, we're going to go in here and start knocking that down. It's going to start going down from 500 to 250. We're getting down. Phosphorus is running out. So let's go ahead and key select that. And then 240, 280. Now we're running way low, like 100. Okay, something like that. And then we're down to the end here. We want it to die out, something like 20 here for that one. So we have nothing left. There we go. And then we're dead right there. Alright, so let's go ahead and play. There we go. And so there's the particles. And then they're kind of running out. There we go. Seems kind of abrupt. Let's take a look. That's kind of what happens when they run out. Here we go. Okay, cool. We could probably run this. Let's go in here. And I want to have it dead for a while because I want to see the last of the sparks fly down. So I'm going to move everything here. And it's 239. Let's go ahead and move everything. I'm going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to click on 239. The keyframe before 240. I'm going to hold down the shift key and drag this across like that. And then in here I'm just going to move that across. In the middle here you can see I'm clicking on that. Move like that. There we go. Okay. That looks good. So let's go ahead and look at the animation now. Got some nice movement here. And at the very end, I'm just going to die off. There we go. And what's nice about that is I'm able to see the very end and the sparks that are left to hit the floor. I give myself enough time to see that. There you go. Cool. Alright, so probably want to make that even more abrupt, so I'm going to go to the emitter. And 250, let's go from 250 to 0 on that. I think I'd like that a little bit better, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this keyframe, delete that, and click on this one, go to cut, and let's kill that off kind of suddenly. Paste and see how that looks, if I like that better. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks better. Usually when it runs out of phosphorus at the very end, it's pretty quick. So, say that. There you go. Okay, cool. I think that looks good. Alright, so animation is completed. Now all you have to do is cut. Let's go ahead. I think what I'm going to do is pull this away a little bit longer. There we go. And just move that over closer to the end, like that. Alright, there we go. So I just moved those keyframes again. I just moved them back a little bit so it's closer to the end, so I don't have a lot of blank dead space there. There we go. Much better. Alright, now the cool thing about this is that You could have, like the 11 rig or something like that, or whatever rig. You could have that character holding the wand, and I thought about doing that, but I didn't know what rig you guys would use, and some rigs this won't work with. But you can parent the pivot point to the character's wrist joint, so when you're animating the character's wrist, you could move that, and I thought that would be kind of fun to do. And if you want to do that, feel free to do that, and send me a video of that. It'd be kind of fun. Anyway, there it is. Hope you guys had fun with this one. Go ahead and play blast this real quick. So play blast and format AVI. We don't want to show ornaments. What does that mean? You don't want to show any like numbers in here or stuff like this. So that's what it means. It won't show. I don't think it'll show that. But if you're worried about showing that, you can go into show none and go show particles. Where are you? Dynamics. Maybe that's it. Here it is. Alright, so that's it. So show none and then show polygons and dynamics. Okay, then that should work. But don't forget you did that. Otherwise you're gonna have troubles. But anyway, so just show all. If you're worried that you won't remember to put it back, you can. Because I don't mind seeing that little ball on top. That doesn't bother me. Here we go. Alright, cool. So that's working pretty good. How do I want you to show this off? Just have it so I don't see the edges of, and I can see enough of the ground and enough of the top, and we want to kind of keep everything in frame. That looks pretty good. I just want to know that you've followed along on the videos and you did a good job. So that's all that matters. Let's go to Play Blast option box. Okay, AVI encoding XFID. XFID is free for all Windows users, so you shouldn't have any issues with that. And then highest quality, and then from window scaling we need to set at 1. And frame padding, because it's 300 frames, we're going to do 3. Remove temporary files, yes. Save file, yes. And we almost got this set up, right? Just need to put my name in front of it. Okay. Myers. And let's copy that. Control C, and then go ahead and browse, and just pop that into the desktop, maybe? Yeah. So I'm going to do mine on the desktop, so go ahead and pop that in. Control V. J. Byers Sparkler. Yay! And Play Blast. Okay. So if your Play Blast runs slow, it might be because your computer can't run it fast enough, and that kind of lets you know that maybe you should use our compressor. So you can only use H.264 or XFID, and XFID is free, so I expect all you Windows users to use XFID. Okay, so there's our Sparkler in all its glory. Have fun with the colors. I look forward to seeing what you guys have and showing off your work. Again, if you want your scenes to look more realistic, then feel free to add textures, but I will need to see at least the walls, the floor, and the table, and of course you need to model the actual sparkler. Alright, I look forward to seeing everybody's work, and we'll check out Module 3 next week. Alright, I'll see you guys then.